Shannondale Springs would live forever. Even in this reading now, that memory of that one perfect day. And the queen of the events was named Rebecca, but that's all we can say. No social event would suffice without her presence. One event was written up in a Baltimore newspaper. August 28, 1848 was a day affording interest at this beautiful place in history than any other watering place in Virginia. The morning dawned in autumnal splendor and shed a radiance bright as a halo over the mountaintops through the valley. The mist that rose heavenward to greet the opening day seemed myriad gossamer, fitting on sunlit pinions and dashing the refracted beams to earth in blithesome merriment. All the throng was impatient to behold the brilliant feast to be performed. The sound of many feet and the murmur of voices rose through the vale. The crowd gathered from all points to witness the expected pageant. The rush of vehicles and horses was so great that they had to be left upon the opposite side of the river, and gentlemen and ladies were borne over in the large ferry boat. They walked thence to the hotel. It was truly an exciting and strange sight to see them stretching in hurried and confused steps across the lawn. At 10 o'clock, the knights have in their names 18 brave and daring champions were registered. They were then ordered to prepare themselves and horses for the tournament. At 11 o'clock, the crowds gathered beneath the umbrageous and majestic elms, where they had a near and far view of the scene. The bugle then sounded, and the knights, all mounted, rode in from the assembled throng under the direction of the herald, dressed in peculiar and picturesque costumes, with their tall lances glittering in the sunbeams. They presented an imposing and brilliant spectacle. The president of the day, one Henry Bettinger, addressed them in such eloquent tones and elevated and inspired sentiments that the dullest bosom was roused to the highest daring, and the true spirit of ancient chivalry was revived. The speech of Mr. Bettinger was most appropriate and beautiful. When he had concluded, the knights repaired to the place of starting. The privilege of selecting the fairest from the lovely array and crowning her the Queen of Beauty was to be the deed of the victor. And there was not one among them would not have scaled a fortress for so rich a boon. Then began the most splendid contention that I've ever witnessed. It is impossible to give a detailed account of it, but the horses, catching the spirit of the rider, flew like the wind, and their flashing eyes and foaming mouths betrayed the high excitement. Mr. K, the victor, was then requested to name the first maid of honor and selected one of the belles of Jefferson County. After the selection, the company repaired to the hotel, where a most sumptuous feast was spread there with the flow of champagne and the exchange of toasts, consuming the afternoon. Everyone then retired to the rooms to prepare for the fancy ball. At about 8:30, the spacious ballroom was thronged with spectators awaiting entrance of the Queen. At the sound of music, the folding doors at the upper end of the room were suddenly opened, and the Queen and her champion, richly dressed in fancy costumes, appeared, followed by the knight and maids of honor and a long train of attendants all fancifully attired. They proceeded to the far end of the room. Then the Queen and her champion and 3 knights and maids of honor took hands, formed and danced a cotillion. I have been to many balls and have seen much in this way, but have never seen one so bright and beautiful as this. The many characters represented every nation. A few, however, were very conspicuous. Mr. Louis Washington, as the English hunter of the 15th century, so superbly he filled the character to very life. And Mr. John Pendleton Kennedy, in the court dress of Louis XIV, looked remarkably striking and handsome.
When the swallows homeward fly, when the roses scattered lie, when from neither hill nor dale chants the silvery nightingale, in these words my bleeding heart would to thee its grief impart.